Namaste. I see the divine in you as you see the divine in me. Namaste. And isn't this always the most beautiful way to greet each other? As I see the divine in you and you see the divine in me, we learn to understand what divine love consciousness is all about. And welcome to the time of the great love, when we can truly learn to understand what working in connective, collective, galactic consciousness is all about. Working in the love connection and working in the greater connection, so that we can bring not only peace to ourselves, but also peace to all of mankind. My name is Suzanna Maria Emmanuel, and I'm the designated channel for Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great, and also the Divine Love Element Universal Light Grid Programmer for CAEAYARON. And in these times, it is so beautiful that we can have these most beautiful teachings from the highest love source, from Divine Himself, from Divine all source of love, so that we can learn to work with greatness within our hearts. My task as a channel is to step out of the way, to allow you to listen to the most beautiful teachings coming through. And all the most beautiful teachings are perfect for our time. And whatever time you may reach these teachings, it will be perfect for you. But before I close my eyes to allow the Masters to reach you and reach you within your heart, I will read out the forgiveness statement. And the forgiveness statement is given at the Divine Pineal Gland activations with CAEAYARON, when he brings the forgiveness codes to us, for all of us who become activated within his being. And becoming activated is a whole new way of living. It's a new path of creation. It's the new awakening path of creation. And to be able to be a Star Sacred World Healer in these days is so beautiful, because we're learning to connect to divine love higher than we could ever do on this plane ever before. CAEAYARON, I bring you now into my spaces of love and healing. I ask for your presence and for your love to be with me at this time. I forgive all that has caused my pain to happen. I release it now. I allow the angels to take it away for me. I bring in the love and the peace, and I desire to understand more joy and self-love. I surround myself with the highest loving divine beings who are here to take care of me. I let go of all fear within me. I release it. I trust that all things are perfect as they are. I'm ready to love myself and all of life more. Thank you, CAEAYARON. Thank you, great divine love. And thank you for watching. Namaste. Greetings, dear brothers and sisters, dear sons and daughters in the light. I am Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great. Happy is the one who desires the highest path, for that one is wise within the heart. Happy is the one who desires to understand how to be in the flows of healing. Happy is the one who desires peace on the earth, for that one is learning to become peace within self, for otherwise the desire of peace would not be within. Happy is the one who is eager to learn the ways of the wise one, For that one will seek the wisdom, and that one will desire the wisdom from above. Greetings. These were the words that the people 2,000 years ago heard through my designated channel, Jesus. And when Jesus spoke to the people, he always taught them to look within the heart, for all wisdom is within. Now my designated channel, Suzanna Maria Emmanuel, is working with the highest divine source, like I always promised. I, Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great, will return with my messenger, who is the Word. But in those days, who will desire to listen? In those days when I return with my word, my messenger, who will desire to understand the ways of awakening within? All things that were prophesied must come true, and it is so that I, Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great, have come to your plane with my designated channel. And in these days the people will want to have the word being spoken to them, for they have searched lifetime after lifetime, praying to my being, Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great. When, Lord, will all these things come to be? When will you return with the designated messenger? Will that time be that you spoke of, when peace and harmony will come upon the plain? For did we not hear the words being spoken? Happy is the one who listens to the words from above, so that peace can become within. Great, so that peace may be on the earth also. Did you not teach us to pray for the kingdom to come, so that divine will may take place on the earth as it also is being done in the greater heavens? Did you not teach us, great divine Father, Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great, that we must forgive all things, so that we do not anger within, so that all things may be of peace? Indeed, I did, through my great word, Jesus, 2,000 years ago, and again I speak these words through my word, Suzanna Maria Emmanuel, who is here to bring the words from divine through to the people. Happy is the one who is hungering for these times. For when they keep seeking these ways, they will so find. For how can you find these ways of the greatest peace when you do not seek within? For only the ones who desire to seek within will find the highest path of truth. And the great truth will set you free from all fear within, from all pain within. Because the children know when the great Father is speaking to them. And the children know when the great Father is calling to them to be gathering together to the great pastures of freshness and of fattening, so that they may never hunger spiritually ever again, so that they may be gathered in the great mountain of light, who is the great CAEAYARON, who has been sent to you, together with my word, Suzanna Maria Emmanuel, to bring millions into the greatness, so that millions may go to the greatness and to everlasting joy, but only if they desire to come into the great mountain of light, so that they will find the shelter from all things. These were the same words that the people heard 2,000 years ago too, when Jesus was speaking to them, as he was the carrier of my divine thoughts as is this channel, Suzanna Maria Emmanuel. She is also the carrier of my divine thoughts, and I will work with no other on your plane, for only one has been designated to do the task of the great divine word. When the people heard those thoughts 2,000 years ago, they began to question, Jesus, what is the right path to follow? And do we have to do something to get onto that path? Is it not enough to say hello to our neighbor, to speak well of our neighbor? For that is what you teach, is it not, to be good to our neighbor? Is it not your teaching that we must love our neighbor as ourselves? And Jesus stated, love alone is not enough to come onto the path of the greatness. For the Father is looking for those ones who have the courage to step onto the greater path. It is important to love thy neighbor as you do yourself, but in itself it is not enough to do the greatest task that the great Father desires all to do. And that is to go within the heart and to learn to follow the divine path. For following the divine path is not an easy road, for it takes strength and courage. And one must be patient within self. For walking the higher path constantly means examining self. Am I doing what I feel is right? Am I following the will of the great divine Father? Am I doing what I am being asked to do? By constantly measuring yourself each day, you grow like a tall mountain. But only to say hello to your neighbor does not help you to become a great mountain and a great tree of strength. For how does loving thy neighbor in itself bring the great strength within you when you do not know what the great Father desires you to do? For it is far more important to do the will of the great Father than it is to say hello to your neighbor. For anyone can say hello to their neighbor, and anyone can demonstrate love to thy neighbor. But it is not until they do the work of the great divine that they understand the way of the love, so that they can truly step into that compassionate self, to truly see what is love towards their neighbor. For how can you say you love your neighbor when you do not know the will of the divine? For plenty of people say they do well to their neighbor, and yet they don't even know what great divine Father desires. How do they know how to bring peace within themselves when they only say hello to thy neighbor, and they say they are good enough to feast at the great feast of the great Father, when they don't even know who the great Father is? Better it is for that one to do the will of the great divine Father and know how to sit at the feast of the great divine Father, and then to approach their neighbor and invite their neighbor to the great feast. Then it is to approach the neighbor and to say, I love you, neighbor, but I do not know how to invite you to the great feast of the great Father. For then you cannot truly show love to your neighbor, can you, if you do not know how to bring them to the greatest path? Therefore, showing love to someone or your neighbor is not enough for you to say that you will enter the greatest heavens of the greatest Father. For it is by demonstrating the love within yourself that you show the great Father that you desire to be in the great mansion of the great Father. It is not enough to go to your neighbor and say hello and give food to your neighbor when you do not even want to know what the great Father desires you to do. Better it is that you join the great Father than it is to say hello to your neighbor. These were the thoughts that Jesus shared with the people, because they were in the thought form that it was enough to show goodness to other people, and that it was enough to be on the greatest path, because they looked for ways not to go into the thoughts of their great Father, and they desired to follow the ways of themselves. Many people walked away from Jesus when they heard those very teachings. They did not desire to know the ways of the highest Father, for how could they stand in the love within themselves if they could not know the great divine Father within them? They feared the rejection of the leaders, the spiritual leaders, standing in their preaching houses, standing in their glorious selves, and stating, "Follow us. It is good when you do good deeds to your neighbor, and that is all that is required of you to step into the next alignment." However, when they approached Jesus with these thoughts, Jesus also stated, "Your great leaders state that it is enough for you to step into the love for your neighbor, even though you do not know what love is. However, they have many laws for you to uphold. So even though they state it is enough for you to say hello to your neighbor or to bring a cake to your neighbor, then they will state to you, but you haven't followed these laws that we have written down in the books. So aren't you contradicting yourself? Aren't you fearing what is within yourself? Aren't you stepping away from truth that is within you? For how can you state that your leaders say that loving thy neighbor is enough, when you know your leaders state how many laws you need to follow in order for you to inherit the kingdom that you do not even know what is? It is better if you understand what divine will is, and then you can truly step into loving thy neighbor, than it is to follow the path of your spiritual leaders, because then your neighbor will suffer eternally, for your neighbor will not know the great will of the great Father. I, Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great, state that the greatest ways to bring goodness to your plane is first by understanding what divine love will is. For it is divine love that all people are healed, and that you are healed in the great love of the great mountain of the great CAEAYARON. For how else can you understand what divine love is? And it is in the great mountain of the great CAEAYARON that you will receive the talents and the purification gifts, so that when you do return to the greater spaces, I, as Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great, can say, "So, dear one, where are your talents? Have you multiplied them many times? Were you able to show love to your neighbor, which is everyone you meet? By multiplying your gifts, did you teach them the ways of divine will? Did you bring healing to the ways of the love within the people, so that they were encouraged to come to the great mountain of the great CAEAYARON and become awakened, and then step into the divine will to become aligned with a great feast of love consciousness? Or were you suffering within and decided to stay small? Did you not receive the talents? Did you not go into the great healing mountain of the great CAEAYARON? Did you only stay small and give a cake to your neighbor and say that was enough to come into the great feast? Did you refuse to come to the great healings? And what have you done with that time that is so precious to you now? For those ones who come to the divine healings of the great CAEAYARON at this time and receive their sacred light codes back, they are able to multiply their love talents and their gifts will multiply time and time and time again, not only upon your earth, but in all mansions of spaces coming. Happy is the one who is listening and heeding these words, for they will truly understand what it is to love thy neighbor, and they will step into the greatness. Happy is the one who understands this, because they can truly understand what it is to walk on that higher path of love consciousness, so that they can work together as sheep in the great pastures, so that they will never spiritually hunger anymore. Happy is the one who understands how peace is brought to your planet by first understanding what it is to love within self first, and to love divine will, and then to bring love to all people upon your plane. Happy is the one who desires to step into the greatness together. Greetings, I am Sovereign Lord Emmanuel the Great.
Greetings.